So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce our first speaker. And she's so funny. She said, just tell him I was blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what you said. I know that. That's our little joke. She's graduated from Tulane, and after practicing law for 20 years as a state and federal prosecutor, and as a civil litigator, she joined the 24th Judicial District Court, and there she was a member of the court's management team and the drug court bench. She was also the president of the Louisiana District Judges Association. Now, she joined the Louisiana Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal and currently serves as vice president of the Louisiana Judicial College Board of Governors and is a co-chair of the, now this might not mean something to everybody, LJC/LSBA Summer School and Alumni Meeting. She has, oh, well, I'm going to jump down into her personal stuff. She might want to share that. But her personal piece is just as big as her other legal piece. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Frederica Ricky Homburg Wicker. A round of applause.
Hi there, everybody. My job and Trudy White's job today is kind of to talk about the court's seat in the reentry bus. Before I do that, though, I want to say something. There are 64 sheriffs in the state of Louisiana. You just re-elected your sheriff and your DA and all that stuff. So the most important piece of all of this is vote. You have no voice if you don't vote. And tell your sheriff what you want, and tell your DA what you want. And if you don't do that, and if you don't do it loudly and forcefully, you will not get what you want. 64 sheriffs, there is one Mike Newstrom and Rob Reardon. Now, I will tell you that there are some other really good sheriffs. There's Mike Kaz, who some of you might know. He's from this general neighborhood, and he is a really good sheriff. And I understand that there's a good sheriff in Natchitoches. There are, however, 64 sheriffs. There are 40,000 people incarcerated in doing hard labor in the state of Louisiana. 20,000 of those 40,000 are being housed by sheriffs. Wait, Pat Smith, stand up. This woman does reentry work all day, every day. Please give Pat Smith a round of applause. Thank you, Representative Smith. 20,000 people are housed in local facilities. Some of those local facilities do their own work, and some of those local facilities have programming. Lots and lots and lots have none. Some of those local facilities contract with for-profit people, and some of those people do some programming, and some do none. Your job is to demand appropriate, certified programming from your sheriff, and if you don't, shame on you. I have a law clerk. She's a precious thing. I have two, but I have a baby lawyer law clerk, and she is, she's lived her law school career in the great city of New Orleans, Louisiana, but she will be making her adult life in Winsboro, Louisiana. Yeah, and she is all over it, I might add, and plans on being very active in her community. What has already been clearly explained to Amanda is that those judges have to sentence those people, and they have to go to that local jail because that sheriff needs the money. Now, what does that have to do with good sentencing? Y'all just tell me what. So that's where we are in Louisiana, and don't let anybody tell you any different. And if you are not active in your community, shame on you, because it will not change. Now, let's talk about judges. So when does reentry start? Reentry starts the day an individual is arrested. The day an individual is arrested, they are housed in a local jail. Nobody does what Rob Reardon does for the folks who are sitting awaiting trial. Now, some of those people committed an armed robbery and they need to stay right where they are in their local jail before they go right off to a state or to hard labor. A lot of those people, however, are there for property offenses that are driven by alcohol addiction, drug addiction, or mental health issues. 70% of the people housed have those issues. The first thing that's going to happen is that a bond is going to get set. Now, I'm not on the Sentencing Commission anymore because I got off when it became very clear that the bail bond industry, that's a for-profit industry, is running who gets to stay in jail and who doesn't, and don't let anybody tell you any different, because that's the way it is, and that's your legislature and your governor and your sheriffs and your DAs, because they all make money on it. Now, pretrial services, which is what Rob Reardon was talking about, is when a judge makes a mindful decision on bail based upon what the risks and the needs of the offender and the community are. That's evidence-based pretrial services. We don't have that. You know, in Kentucky, they got rid of all the bail bondsmen. And guess what? The state did not implode. Their recidivism rate has dropped dramatically. Do tell. We don't have that in Louisiana. So when does reentry start? Reentry starts with arrest. It starts with saying to the offender, okay, you've got a drug problem. We are going to put you on home incarceration, and we're going to condition that with drug treatment, alcohol treatment, moral and cognitive behavioral counseling. We're going to start to straighten you out today. What we're not going to do, which is what happens all over the state of Louisiana, we're going to house you in the jail for the next 8 months. Oh, wait, let's see. You had a job. You don't have that anymore. You were feeding your kids. Oh, you weren't the best dad in the world. You were a drug addict, but you were feeding your kids. Oh, you're not doing that anymore. You were in school. You're 17 years old. Wait, you were just going to finish, because in Louisiana, unlike all the other states, you're an adult at 17, not 18. Oh, wait, you were in school. Well, we just made a dropout of you, but we housed you, and it's okay because your city paid your share of that money to house that guy. And oh, wait, like, we waited till he could make that commercial bond so everybody could get their 2%, 3%, whatever. But now you are, if you were a mess when you got arrested, now you are a big hot mess. So that's what we do. What's the judge's job in all that? The judge's job is to set a meaningful bond. But wait a minute, the legislature took the discretion away from the judges to set meaningful bonds in a whole lot of cases. But ladies and gentlemen, you elected those people. You elected those people, a lot of them from Orleans Parish, I might add, who, or that's that guy Harrison, you know him, Pat. They really want everybody in jail. You elected them, and you just re-elected a whole bunch of them. So the judges don't have discretion to set recognizance bonds. For instance, the dad who has full custody because the mother has mental health issues and tried to burn the house down, so he's got full custody, but she's got mental health issues, and everybody in town knows it, and we all feel awful about it. Nevertheless, he has children, and she has mental health issues, and she called the sheriff, and she accused him of domestic violence. He's going to go to jail, and he's going to sit in jail because the judge has no discretion to set a recognizance bond, but she's got the kids now. Somebody thought that was a really good idea. I guess they didn't think. So the first place the judge is involved is the setting of the bond. What's the first place where you can be involved? The setting of the bond. What does the judge not know when the judge sets the bond? The judge has the charge and the rap sheet, and we have notoriously inaccurate rap sheets, but the rap sheet nevertheless. What does the judge not know? The judge doesn't know if nothing to do with guilt or innocence. The judge doesn't know if the person has a drug problem, alcohol problem, a mental health problem, whether the judge probably knows whether or not the person is currently gainfully employed. The judge doesn't know how many kids the person is taking care of, whether they're taking care of their mama or their papa. The judge doesn't know if the offender is in school. The judge doesn't know any of that. And in the time it takes to set a bond, the judge doesn't have the ability to get that information unless somebody from the community steps up to the plate, knocks on the door, feels empowered. You know, it's a public court system, and says, can I tell you about this guy? Judge, this guy is bipolar and he's not taking his meds. When he's on his meds, he's fine, but he's on Medicaid and he can't get his medicine right now. Can you help? Not every judge will help, but Trudy White would help. And a lot of other judges like Trudy White would help. So what's the next thing that happens in the court system? Because I was told maybe not all of you knew exactly what goes on. So a police report is written, and it is taken to the DA's office, and then the district attorney screens the case. That means the DA decides, for instance, whether the person is going to be diverted into a non-prosecutorial realm, whether the person is going to go to specialty courts. Yay, that's something judges work on really hard. But specialty courts are a boutique in a Walmart world of criminal justice. Nevertheless, maybe the DA will sign off on drug court, mental health court, now we have some veterans court, domestic violence court, on all of those kind of things. Maybe somebody goes and talks to the DA and says, look, he's 17 years old. He has all kinds of learning issues. He's on a bad path, but this kid is salvageable, and I'm his minister, and I promise you I will work with him. What the DA knows is that he's got an aggravated burglary in front of him. He's going to charge aggravated burglary unless the offender has, oh, wait, the money for a private lawyer, because then the lawyer can go in and say, Mr. DA, can I show you his school records, his mental health records, his hospital records? Can I tell you about his mama and his daddy? Can I tell you about his grandma who's raising him? Can I tell you that he's 17, his mom has to work 3 jobs to support the family, and he's in charge of all of his little brothers and sisters? Well, we can't afford a lawyer, and we have a public defender, and by the way, the public defenders do a wonderful job. But in most of the state, the public defenders don't get the case until the case is accepted. So unless there's an advocate for the offender, the state only has the police report and the rap sheet until he's already charged. Well, the horse has already left the barn. He's got a felony charge. Maybe he would have been diverted. Maybe he would have gone to drug court. Maybe something else would have happened. So what we can't do, you cannot go, you're the mom. You can't go, Mr. DA, I know my son's guilty. Oh, you can't say that. But you can say, Mr. DA, I can't talk about the case because I really don't know anything about his case. I want to tell you about my kid. And I want to tell you what I want to do. I had an absolute conspiracy with a whole lot of mothers when I was a district court judge. I mean, mothers would come, their kid wasn't on the docket that day. They would approach the bench and they'd say, okay, now, so listen, Mardi Gras coming, you have to have him picked up. I'd say, well, I can't just revoke him because you're worried about him, but can you and he and I sit down? And like sometimes they'd say, yeah, but I'm going to tell you what he did, and so you can put him in for the weekend. Well, okay, I'll put him in for the weekend. You just want to get past Mardi Gras? I'll put him until Wednesday. That's having a good relationship with your judge. So you have the ability to talk to the DA and say, Mr. DA, I heard you have this diversion program, and I don't know who's in your program because truly nobody knows who's in the DA's diversion program. Could we talk about it, and can we talk about how much it costs? Well, sometimes it costs less to have the individual plead to what we call an 893. They don't really plead guilty. They say, well, if I don't successfully do what I need to do, well, then something will happen. And they go to drug court, or they go to one of these courts, and they get very intense supervision. So that's an idea. Those are things that you can do. So what's the next thing that happens? Well, the next thing that happens is, let's say the charge gets accepted, and then the judge has the case. That's the next time the judge is involved in the case. And maybe the judge says, well, I'm going to talk to the DA because I'm going to try to get him to go to drug court. But the judge has 60, 70 cases on a docket, but if you're the parent that's there, the squeaky wheel gets something or other, but it gets a lot of attention. So if you're the parent who's there, you're the grandparent, you're the aunt, you're the community, you're the neighbor. I love these kids. There's a kid that lives down the street from me. One summer, he lived the entire summer at my house. I didn't know. I thought he was just spending the night like he always did, and eating dinner at my table every night. If that kid got in trouble, I'm the neighbor. I would go knocking on the door. You're the neighbor, you're the safety. You can go to court and say, Judge, listen, he's a mess, but if you give him probation, I promise, I will help with him every day. I'll drive him to class. I'll get my big boy to drive him to class. On and on and on. So the judge sees the case. What does the judge have for information? Not much. The judge has, probably the DA and the defense attorney are talking about a plea agreement. And you know what? That is not necessarily, the agreement they reach may be more pragmatic to their position than it is toward the offender's position. And so if, justice may not be sure, but it's speedy. If you are involved in the conversation because you're there, things will tend to be better. What does the judge have? The judge has the rap sheet, the police report, and whatever information maybe there is. Did the defense attorney go get the school records, the mental health records, the hospital records, the information about the family, the information from the neighbors? No. Did the judge get the juvenile record, which is only available by a court order and must be read and immediately returned? 99% of the time, no. Does the judge know there's a juvenile record? Probably not. But maybe you're in juvenile court. All the same processes apply. Ask the judge, can we talk about what happened in school? Can I get for you? I'm the parent. I can get the school records, the things that you think would help the judge. Be an advocate. When is the first time, except in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I'm not sure if you were paying attention when because it's all gobbledygook. When Rob Reardon was talking about assessment, what are the risks for this offender and the needs of this offender? That's assessment. In 63 parishes, remember we said 64, in 63 parishes, the first time there's an assessment is when the offender is sentenced, after sentence. So if the offender's on probation, the first time the offender sees that there's an assessment is when the offender sees the probation officer. But wait a minute, the judge already sentenced. And so when I was a district court judge, I really was confused. I really thought I was everybody's mother. And I really did hound my own children. And so I had this theory that I'll make 1,000 conditions of probation, and I'll have my bailiff see every offender every Friday. Oh, wait, they missed work on Friday if they had to come. They were late for work because I was having them drug tested too many times a week, and on and on and on. You could say to the judge, if we could put him on probation and just give him the general conditions, and then I promise, if you give him a day to come back, we'll come back after probation does the assessment, and then whatever the assessment says, we could we could add those conditions. We could work together on this, and the judge is going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Because the judge might not even know. As a matter of fact, even if the judge attended the ongoing sentencing education, might not have heard that the first time they're assessed is at probation, and so the judge might not know what you're telling the judge, that wait, if we wait until they go to probation and we let probation do the assessment and determine what conditions actually have to be imposed, then we might actually have a sentence that addresses this offender. Great idea, huh? So then there's this other thing that judges don't know, that I'm getting another little secret tidbit. This is an armed robber. He's going to prison. He's going to prison for a minimum of 10 years. And we have a lot of judges who are really in love with 90 years. They just love that number, 90. It just resonates. I can't tell you why, but I can tell you that somewhere along the way to that 90 years, the sentence is no longer effective because the person is no longer a risk to society or to themselves. And so that's a waste of time and money, and it's crazy. But the judges don't know that they can sentence this 22-year-old to 20 years and leave open the time, if they do it that day, leave open the time to reconsider sentence. And then when that offender gets down the road a few years and he has calmed down and lost some of his testosterone and gone into offender menopause, which is really a term, true. He loses that desperate need to do insane and crazy things. Then, as you heard from Rob, DOC does constant reevaluation of offenders. Then the offender can be resentenced to the amount of time the offender actually needs. Neat idea. Most judges will say no, but you might get somebody who's willing to take a risk. What if you have a kid who your child, he was great until he was in about 7th grade, and the wheels started to come off the rails, and now he's 17, and he's dropped out, and you think he's probably selling some drugs on the street corner, and you think he's probably doing some drugs, and he's been charged, well, he's doing drugs because he's been charged with possession with intent to distribute cocaine. The state has X amount of time to prosecute him. What if you said, Judge, we will sign a piece of paper to waive all of that? In other words, you can prosecute him for the rest of time if you'll just agree that we're going to send him to Arkansas to Job Corps and see if he can get out of this community and complete Job Corps and come back a welder, and then can we talk about it? The judge is going to say, I never heard of that. I don't even know what you're talking about. Some judge will say, Mr. DA, that's not a bad idea, is it? So all of that is a long way of telling you that reentry begins the day a person is arrested, and reentry ends when they get their master's degree in biochemistry, and you see, you think I'm kidding. So I had a kid. He was 17. He was, oh my God, giving his mother a hell of a time. He was still in school. He was a senior in high school, and he started burglarizing the neighbors. He's in front of me. He did a little, we put him in parish prison for about 60 days. And we said, here's the deal. You're on probation. The conditions of your probation will be evolving. But the first condition is you're going to graduate from high school. Next, the condition is you're going to complete Delgado. He has a master's in biochemistry. I did not keep him in probation all that time. But that's what happened. When he got out of, when he finished at Southern, he came back to see me and said, I want to talk to all the offenders. And he did. And then we got an expungement, and he went to the University of Missouri and got his master's. And that's reentry, right? That is possible. And that is possible a lot, a lot, a lot. And right now, for instance, in Lake Charles, they only need, what, Pat, 22,000 welders. Well, did you hear? Lafayette's starting a welding program. That's the beginning of reentry. The end of reentry is that guy who becomes a welder, becomes a dad, supports his kids, pays his taxes, loves his wife. That's reentry. What is your job? Your job is, in the big picture, vote, be a community activist, talk to the judge for the neighbor's kid. In the small world, through your community, it's really easy. It's not easy. That's a lie. It's easier to be the person who does Kairos at Angola. It's pretty clean. They go back to their spot and you go back to yours. It's really hard to do reentry in the community. And reentry isn't just offenders. Reentry is the people with mental health problems. They smell terrible. They just do. Reentry is the 12-year-old who just got booted out of he was expelled from school. He's trying to have a fist fight with every kid in the neighborhood and in the school. That's reentry. And that's dirty reentry. It's up close and personal. And you know what Rob said about I wrote it down, for every 1 negative, 5 positives. All the people who are involved in reentry are people who are at risk. So the rule in my house, this was really hard. With my kids, 10 positives for every negative. So I was always telling them that they were wonderful and that I loved them and they were the best because I was always giving them hell. And so 5 positive, and what is the positive? Steve Listell can tell you what the positive is. You woke up today. Yeah, that's great. Sometimes positives are little things. 5 positives for every negative. So sometimes judges don't know what their job is. Sometimes they don't have a lot of imagination. Your job is to kind of keep those judges between the rails. Thanks a lot.